Hello there, I'm Lou Walker. I'm a registered health coach, which means I help people find ways to feel in control of their health and make the changes they need to live life to the full. Now, health is a really personal thing and one size does not fit all. But if you were to push me for one way to start a health journey, I'd say cut out sugar and processed foods. This isn't controversial. The World Health Organization and government guidelines agree, but knowing this doesn't make it easy to do. So I want to help in this video share why sugar is so bad for us and to share a couple of ideas as to how to tackle it. We're going to focus on sugar. But if you bear in mind that 70% of processed foods contain sugar and that over half the UK food intake is made up of ultra-processed foods, you can see why processed foods really are part of the problem. And if you are interested in weight loss, definitely stick around. Firstly, the last 40 years have shown that our bodies don't cope well with sugar. Globally, obesity started going up when dietary guidelines started telling us to get our fat intake down. We were told to base our diets on starchy foods like pasta, bread, rice and potatoes, but starch breaks down into glucose, which is a sugar. Around the same time, the food industry invented low-fat foods, but they had to replace the fat with something to make it taste okay and to feel normal in the mouth. And that something was sugar. So reducing fat in our diets meant we increased our sugar, and obesity skyrocketed, along with type 2 diabetes and many other metabolic conditions. Sugar has no nutritional value, no vitamins, no minerals, no micronutrients. Yes, it contains energy, but so does every other natural food. We don't need to eat sugar. Yes, we use glucose constantly, but our bodies make it, so we don't need to eat it. Some fats and amino acids are called essential because our bodies can't make them, so we have to get them from our diet. But there are no essential carbohydrates. Sugar challenges our blood glucose levels. A lot of biochemistry goes into keeping our blood glucose within a safe, narrow range. And if this doesn't happen, we get ill. Type 2 diabetes is what happens when blood sugar stays too high for several years. It doesn't help that we're always told that being hungry is not good for us and that we need to keep snacking to keep our blood sugar up. But did you know how much sugar is circulating in the blood of a healthy adult at any one time? Can you see that? 1 teaspoon. So you can see how sugary snacks can overwhelm our systems, especially if we do it several times a day for our whole lives. We don't have an off switch for sugar. For protein and fat, we have hormones to tell us we've had enough and to stop eating, but there's nothing like that for sugar. It's why we can always make room for dessert. When humans were evolving, there wasn't much sugar around, so when we did come across something sweet like honey, it was a valuable commodity that could help us to put on some fat for when food was scarce. It was so rare and precious that the last thing we wanted was an off switch. But this works against us today because sugar is around us all the time and we're still programmed to notice it and to eat it. This doesn't mean we're weak-willed or greedy. It's just a natural response to the sugar in our environment. Sugar's addictive. It lights up the same areas in the brain as cocaine and heroin. And it releases the pleasure and reward hormone dopamine. Dopamine, by the way, is not the same as the happiness hormone serotonin, so pleasure and happiness are not necessarily the same thing. Sugar doesn't fill you up. In fact, it's likely to make you hungry. To keep blood glucose within range, insulin is released to hoover glucose out of the blood and into muscles and other tissues for energy. But a big sugar surge means a big insulin surge, which can lead to low blood glucose, more hunger, and so on it goes. You can see why people call it the blood sugar roller coaster. Sugar can make us feel sleepy and sluggish. Do you ever get a dip in energy after lunch? Glucose inhibits a chemical that helps to keep us awake. Also, that blood sugar roller coaster takes its toll on all our systems. Table sugar contains a metabolic hellraiser. Table sugar is sucrose, which is a mixture of glucose and fructose, and it's fructose that gives sugar its sweetness and triggers the dopamine rewards response that makes us want to eat more. The body can cope with large amounts of glucose if it has to, but it will suffer eventually. Fructose, on the other hand, causes harm quickly, and eating sugar delivers a constant supply of it. Lastly, sugar and starchy carbs make it easy to gain weight and really difficult to lose it. Let's have a look at what insulin does with the glucose it gets out of the blood. First, it's offered to muscles and other tissues, but if they don't need it, it gets converted to glycogen and stored. If our glycogen stores are full, excess glucose gets turned into fat and stored. So insulin is a fat storage hormone. It's useful to think of fat storage as a one-way street. When insulin's around, fat can go in to be stored but can't come out. Insulin turns off fat burning and locks fat in. So if you're trying to lose weight and eating fruit and starchy carbs, you'll have a lot of insulin around, and you may well be storing fat and not burning it. If you've come across the low carb way of eating for weight loss, this is key to how it works. Keep carbs down to keep insulin down so that you can unlock the fat you want to lose and burn it. And as a bonus, you probably won't be hungry. All of this, I know, is a bit of a battering ram of doom and gloom, but everyone deserves to know why our bodies don't cope well with sugar. But there is something good to focus on, something positive. Because sugar circulates in our blood, too much of it affects our whole body. But if you reduce sugar, you help your whole body. The first step might be to notice where your sugar's coming from. Is there a certain time of day or an emotional trigger that makes it worse? And if you're wondering where all your energy is going to come from if you don't eat sugar or starchy carbs, be reassured that real food like fresh meat, fish, pulses, dairy, nuts and seeds and vegetables, of course, all contain fantastic sources of nutrients and energy that your body recognises and needs. This is a huge part of what I do as a health coach, so if this sounds useful to you, do get in touch. I'll also be talking about low-carb real food for health and weight loss in future videos, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Now, I'm a health coach, but I'm not a doctor, so it always makes sense to check with your GP before making any changes to your health. Maybe this video has given you some ideas for things to discuss with them. But in the meantime, I'd love to know in the comments below what struck a chord with you. Were there any surprises from this video? What changes do you think would make sense to you? Please do let me know.